My name is Jenna, I'm 36 years old, and I live in a quiet, cozy suburb of Riverfield, Oregon, in a tiny two-room apartment where everything has its place, and the walls seem to hold my breath and the silence I've learned to live in. Working as an accountant for a local organic food company, I spend my days in a world of numbers and verified formulas, with precision and predictability behind every dollar and cent, unlike the life that has remained outside these walls. My apartment is my island. Here I can allow myself to be myself, not smile out of habit, not keep up a conversation when I don't feel like it, and not hide sadness if it comes. There is no judgment in this silence, only the rustle of book pages, sometimes the murmur of a coffee machine and the tapping of laptop keys in the evenings. But even in this measured solitude, there was always room for one sacred event: Christmas. A holiday that I loved and feared at the same time. A holiday that I was preparing for with fanatical scrupulousness, as if trying to prove to the world, and, perhaps, to myself, that love can be as accurate as an accounting balance sheet if it is calculated correctly. Every year at the beginning of October, I began my ritual. I opened a new file marked Gifts, flipped through old notes, checked which wishes had been fulfilled in the past, which toys, books, blankets were particularly successful. Lily mentioned in passing last June that she liked owls, and I found a stuffed owl with a night light. Owen once mentioned that he wanted to learn photography, and I ordered a child's camera with a protective case. Even Barney, their old Labrador, was not ignored. This time he got a sweater with embroidery, Santa's favorite, bright red, with white snowflakes. I wrote it all down on my phone, in my notebook, in my head. The system works smoothly. This year, I especially wanted everything to be perfect. I started looking for gifts earlier than usual, ordered wrapping paper from an old catalog, and chose ribbons: gold for Lily, blue for Owen, and emerald for my parents. I even made a stock: several universal gifts, lavender and glass, handmade chocolate, neutral toys, in case someone brings a guest. I knew I might have overdone it, but it was my cure for loneliness, my proof that I was part of their world, that my place in the family circle still existed. The gifts were neatly lined up under my own Christmas tree, small but lively, decorated with antique toys and paper snowflakes that I carved as a child. I looked at her and imagined, we're all in the living room of my parents' house, in the old hilltop neighborhood, in that house with the high ceilings and the smell of vanilla cookies. Lily and Owen are laughing, tearing the wrappers. Mom is unwrapping my scarf, which I picked out at the store on the corner of Jefferson Street, and Mike, he just nods, as if speaking without words. I see you, sister. I cherish this image as a cherished dream. But on the morning of December 23rd, everything collapsed. The message from Mom arrived at 7:12. Simple, short, cold: Mike and his family want to spend Christmas alone. Please don't come. I'm sorry we're late to inform you. I froze. My heart squeezed, and my fingers trembled, as if I were standing in an icy wind. I read it over and over again, hoping that at some point the words would change, soften, become a joke. No, I muttered, she's probably tired. Maybe it's a mistake. I immediately dialed her number. The beeps were ringing in her ears, but she didn't answer. I called again. Then again. And more. There was no response. Then the second message came. From Mike. You shouldn't come. There is no place for those who do not know their role. I felt as if someone had torn the floor from under my feet. The words were like a knife, not because of rudeness, but because of indifference. There was no regret in them. Directive only: you're superfluous. I was sitting on the edge of the couch, looking at the presents under the tree, at the handwritten postcards, at the little bows tied with such love. And it all suddenly seemed like a farce to me. I gave my heart to a place that didn't have a corner for him. What if I go anyway? I whispered, as if asking myself. Maybe when they see me, they'll remember that I'm part of this family. The snow outside the window began to fall in flakes on the windowsill, on the glass. He fell slowly, quietly, as if the heavens were trying to comfort him. I looked in the mirror. His face was calm, almost detached. His eyes were dry, but there was pain in them. I was no longer that naive girl who waits for miracles. But I still wanted to believe that one day, even at Christmas, they would want to see me again. Snow lay on the road like a thick milky blanket, smoothing out the corners of the world, turning the city into a watercolor postcard. Everything seemed to freeze, surrendering to a winter spell. The streets are almost empty. The windows of the houses glow with soft amber. Rare silhouettes rush past, leaving a trail that instantly erases time. I drove slowly, as if dancing with the road, holding the steering wheel with both hands, even though my palms were wet. The radio was playing old Christmas tunes. Bing Crosby was singing about a white Christmas, which I suddenly desperately wanted, but not for myself anymore. On the front seat next to me were gift bags, neatly wrapped, with name cards pasted on each one. I reread the names to myself like a prayer: Lily, Owen, Mom, Dad, Mike, Haley. I still hoped that when they saw that I had come in peace, everything would change. Maybe it's a misunderstanding. Maybe Mom just wasn't feeling well. Maybe Mike went too far, but now he will smile, say that this is all nonsense, and let me into the warmth of the house, where it smells of cinnamon and coniferous branches, and firewood crackles in the fireplace. My parents' house appeared out of the fog like a mirage. It's a big, two-story building with an old red brick facade and a wide porch where I used to run barefoot in the summer, hiding behind columns. The windows were shining, soft light in each of them, shadows moving inside, like memories. Garlands flashed on the roof, snowflakes fell on the steps, turning the entrance into a fabulous setting. Everything was as usual. Everything except the main thing. I parked at the curb, turned off the engine, and the cabin became so quiet that I could hear my heart pounding in my chest. With uncertain movements, I got out of the car, went to the trunk, and took out the presents. The bags rattled under the weight of the glass bottles, the wrappers rustled, and I gripped the handles so tightly that my fingers turned white. As I climbed the snow-covered steps, I noticed that there was a welcome mat on the porch, and for a moment I wanted to believe in its sincerity. I rang the doorbell. Once. Then again. 1 second. 2 seconds. The moments seemed like an eternity. The door opened slowly, and Mom appeared behind it. She was wearing a burgundy knitted sweater, her hair was pulled back into a neat bun, her eyes were tired, but not from insomnia, but from something deeper, from the choice she had already made. "Jenna," she said so softly, as if she couldn't believe what she was saying. "I told you not to come this year." I stood on the threshold, as if frozen from the inside. The gifts felt heavy in his hands, like stones. I tried to smile, but my face wouldn't work. "Mom," I breathed, "I just wanted to. Maybe you've changed your mind." I brought everything we had planned. Cookies, gifts, the scarf you asked for. Mike appeared behind her. He stepped out of the shadows as if he was waiting for his moment. His face was cold, his gaze direct and prickly. "Tell her, Mom," he said, not taking his eyes off me. "Tell her she's not welcome here." Mom looked away. It seemed to me that she pressed her lips together as if in pain, but she didn't say anything. Mike took a step closer, his voice firmer. "You're a loser, Jenna. We haven't received a cent from you in 3 months. What about you? I bought a car and went on vacation. And the children have no new clothes, no fees for clubs. But you have a new scarf and coffee in expensive cups. This car," I began, my voice trembling, "is on an installment plan. The vacation is at the expense of old savings that I have been collecting for 6 years. And as for clothes and mugs, Mike, you have a job. Haley has an income. These are your children. He interrupted with a snort. "You've always done that. And now you've decided that you can just leave. That's not how it works, Jenna. Either you're with us, or you're nobody. I looked at my mom. She was silent. She just stared at the floor as if she couldn't stand my gaze. I felt a wave rising inside me. Not anger. Pain. Tell me, Mom, I whispered. Am I really unwanted here? She didn't answer. I nodded silently. She turned around. The snow creaked underfoot like a protest. The presents were still in my hands, and they burned my palms. I walked to the car, feeling something break in my chest. Not fragile, no. Something old and hard, like a root that had held me for too long in a soil where there was no more life. When I got into the car and slammed the door, I didn't cry. She just stared ahead, through the windshield, at the house that was now someone else's. The light in the window was still on. The children were laughing. Someone opened the curtain. Haley glanced in my direction, but then disappeared. It was as if I didn't exist at all. I left. Slowly, carefully, as if she didn't want to disturb the night. The gifts were lying nearby, unpacked, unwanted. But there was an emptiness in my chest, as white and boundless as a snowy road under wheels. The snow outside the window danced lazily, as if tired of its eternal task, to hide old tracks and create the illusion of a new beginning. I drove slowly, with caution, not so much because of the ice, but because of the weight that pulled my body down. Everything inside seemed to have faded, became colorless and sticky, like wet cardboard. Every turn of the road, every streetlight reflected in the windshield, was a mute question. Why do I keep going back to a place where I'm not expected? When I got home, it was already dark. The key in the lock turned with a familiar click, and I entered the apartment, which still smelled of cinnamon and fir branches. The garlands on my humble Christmas tree were still twinkling, as if they didn't know there wouldn't be a Christmas this year. I took off my coat, put the gift bags next to the sofa, and went into the kitchen, where I brewed strong black coffee. Without cinnamon. Without milk. Bitterness was what I needed right now. I sat down at the table, cupped the mug in my hands, and closed my eyes. Last Sunday, last month, past years, everything swirled into one endless whirlpool of memories. I reached over to the shelf and pulled out an old leather notebook. My financial diary. Dry, neat, like everything I've done. Every dollar that wasn't spent on yourself was here. Clearly numbered, dated, classified. Line by line, it's not just expenses, but the story of my love, my devotion, and my naive belief that if you help for long enough, one day it will be noticed. Lily's tuition at a private school is $3,500. Repayment of mortgage debt, $12,500. Money for medicines, for winter jackets, for a camp, for a sports club, for a broken-down car. Mike called me in the middle of the night, saying, "Jenna, we urgently need." And I sent the money. No questions asked. Without calculations. Because it's a family. Because it's necessary. Because I believe that it builds trust. Now that I just wouldn't, send the money, I became a loser. I put my pen in the middle of the page and wrote, December 23rd, refusal. Neglect. Epiphany. At that moment, the phone vibrated on the table. I took it, not expecting anything good. It was a message from Haley. Short, restrained, but unexpectedly warm. Jenna, I'm sorry. I don't agree with the way Mike treated you. I didn't have the courage to say it then. I hope you're okay. I froze. Haley. The same Haley who always stayed away, as if I were an annoying chore, an obsessive reminder of someone else's salvation. And now she is. Did you apologize? There was no rhetoric in her message, no excuses. Just a statement. Confession. And that short, "I'm sorry," sounded louder than anything I've ever heard from my family. I didn't answer right away. I just put the phone next to me like a fragile relic. In the silence of that evening, his screen burned like a beacon. Not for long, but long enough for me to feel that I still mean something. At least someone. 3 days later, I got a call from a man named Daniel Crawford. His voice was polite, measured, like those who are used to talking to tired people. He introduced himself as a lawyer and immediately said that he was calling on behalf of Haley. "Miss Jenna," he began, "I understand that this call may be unexpected, but Mrs. Spencer has asked me to contact you. She discovered some financial inconsistencies in the actions of your brother Michael regarding the funds that you have transferred to him over the past years." I sat there, not breathing. I just listened. "She has evidence," he continued, "that a significant portion of the funds supposedly intended for the needs of the family were spent on gambling, restaurants, and hotels. Some of the payments were not even known to Haley. She found them by accident, checking bank statements. She does not intend to take legal steps yet, but believes that you should know to protect yourself if the situation escalates." "Wait," I interrupted him, "you mean Mike? That he was cheating not only on me, but on Haley as well? Used the money for entertainment?" "That's right. We have collected the documents. Haley took the initiative because she wants to protect the children. Its main message is that you don't have to continue to support something that was based on untruth from the very beginning." I listened as if someone was tearing at the fabric of my past, cutting the seams between credulity and reality. I thought about every payment, every sleepless night as I entered the numbers into the spreadsheet, closing my eyes to everything that was troubling. I didn't know that at that moment he was sitting in a casino or ordering expensive wine. "Thanks for telling me," was all I could say when the conversation ended. I was sitting by the window, watching the snow continue to fall outside. And suddenly I got a strange feeling. I'm not broken. I woke up. And I will no longer look at the world through the lens that was imposed on me. I took out my notebook, opened a new page, and wrote, "Now I know." And I will no longer allow my kindness to be used as an anchor for someone else's laziness. The day was gray, like an unjustified expectation. The snow that had melted overnight turned into a crisp crust on the asphalt, and every step outside sounded like a click of the tongue, full of doubt. I sat by the window, clutching a mug of tea that had long since cooled, and watched as people wrapped in scarves hurried about their business, unaware that something irreversible was happening behind that glass. Since I heard the lawyer's voice and read the message from Haley, my inner state has stopped being shaky. Something in me became crystal hard, like ice on a river before a spring flood. In the evening, there was a knock on the door. Not indecisive, not a request. Demanding. Persistent. I knew who it was. My heart squeezed for a second, but I wasn't afraid. I got up from my chair, walked down the hall, and put my hand on the doorknob. She inhaled. Exhaled. And she opened it. Mike was standing in the doorway. His hat was on one side, his coat was unbuttoned, and there were cold spots on his cheeks. But not just from him, rather, from the worry, from the panic that was visible in his eyes, as if he was already drowning, but still hoping that someone would reach out to him. I stared at him in silence. He opened his mouth first. "Jenna." His voice trembled like a wet leaf in the wind. "We need to talk." I crossed my arms over my chest, not backing away from the door. "Please," he continued. "Everything is falling apart. Haley, she wants a divorce. He says he can't take it anymore. The children ask why Mom is crying. I do not know what to do. Everything is going to hell." I stared at him without blinking. He didn't have the cold superiority that I'd heard at the door of my parents' house. There was no condescension. Only fear. Pure, outright fear. "And you came to me," I said, "because I'm the last one who can save you?" He took a step forward, but I didn't move. My hand remained on the door frame like a barrier. "You have to understand," he began. "No, Mike. You have to understand that, I interrupted. I'm not your airbag. I'm not a tool. Not a wallet. I'm a sister. Or at least it was. You didn't come here because you need me, but because you need my money. And it won't happen anymore. He bit his lip and looked away. His shoulders sagged, but his voice became sharper. If Haley sues, you'll be affected, too. You transferred the money. You participated. I chuckled. It was quiet, but enough for him to hear a note of contempt in the sound. Participated? Are you saying that helping you is a crime? That my kindness can now be used against me? He looked up. I'm just saying that it's not that simple. Yeah, I nodded. But now everything is simple. I have proof. All transfers. All the reasons. All your messages. I believe that I was helping children. And you turned that help into casino tickets and hotel nights. He took a step back. His eyes darted around my hallway, as if he was looking for the woman who used to grab her wallet at every word he said. But she wasn't here anymore. You've changed, he said dully. I finally saw who you are. This is not a change. It's an epiphany. He paused. Then he lowered his head. He sighed. And he looked up again. That's it, then? Will you just close the door? I looked at his face. The very person I trusted, and protected since childhood. And now it was the mask of a man who was ready to use it again, if possible. Yes, Mike. I'll close the door. And I did it. Smoothly. Without shouting. No rage. She just snapped the lock shut like a final chord. Then she pressed her back against it and froze. My heart was beating fast. His hands were shaking, but not from fear. Because I took a step that I hadn't dared to take all my life. It wasn't a victory. Not liberation. It was a confession. Myself. Its value. Its own border. I went into the kitchen, put the kettle on, and poured a new cup. The room became quiet. Surprisingly, this silence did not seem empty. It was warm, dense, and enveloping, like an embrace of oneself. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was standing on the ground. Firmly. Assuredly. And no one else will be able to knock the ground out from under my feet. The morning began with the faint tremor of the phone on the bedside table. At first, I didn't want to watch. I was still tired from the last conversation, from how something that I had called family was collapsing with a bang. But the name on the screen made me sit up, covering my lips with my palm in surprise. Haley. I pressed the green button, and there was breathing in the receiver, slightly ragged, like a man who had just crossed an inner abyss. Jenna. Her voice was brittle, but it no longer had the submissiveness I used to hear. I've made a decision. My children and I are leaving. I found a small apartment in Lakeview. It's a quiet town, good schools, a park nearby. I can't stay in that house anymore. It's not a house, it's a cage. I listened in silence. There was everything in her voice that I hadn't been able to afford for so long: fear, hope, determination. I have savings, she continued, but I can't afford the whole move at once. And I need to act while he's away. For now, I have a chance to leave without shouting, without scenes. Jenna. I don't want to ask. I'm so embarrassed. But there's no need to be shy, I interrupted her gently. Send me the account number. I'll transfer as much as you need. It's not a duty, Haley. This is support. You're finally taking a step that you should have taken a long time ago. And I'm proud of you. Pause. And only then, a quiet, almost soundless, thank you. We didn't talk anymore. Emotions were too fragile, like the first ice on a lake. Once you step on it, everything will crack. I turned off my phone, opened the banking application, entered the amount and clicked transfer. Moving your finger across the screen has become an act of trust. This is probably the first time I've sent money without feeling any tension. It wasn't a rescue. It was a choice to help, not because it was necessary, but because I wanted to. The next day, she sent a photo. The children were sitting against the background of a pile of boxes. Lily was holding a stuffed owl in her hands, which I gave her 2 years ago, and Owen was clutching an old ball. They were smiling, broadly, honestly, really. Above the photo is the caption, "Goodbye, old house. Hello, new life." I stared at this image for a long time, then created a new folder on my computer and named it Light. There, among the documents, plans, and financial calculations, this photo became the first truly living element. A piece of something that was born not out of a sense of duty, but out of freedom. Mike started calling that evening. At first, just missed calls. Then a voice message. I turned it on and heard snatches of phrases laced with rage. "You've ruined everything. Family. You had no right." I didn't listen to the rest. I just clicked delete. I didn't need to listen anymore. I knew that no accusatory tone would change the truth. Everything I've ever done has been a step forward. And if I went the other way now, it's because the other road ended in a cliff. I woke up earlier than usual the next morning. The window was covered with frost, and the morning light entered the room slowly but surely. I was pouring myself a cup of coffee and realized that I was not waiting for a call, not waiting for a message, not waiting for a confession. Silence has become my ally. It wasn't scary anymore. It was lulling. 2 days later, I received a message from Haley again. Short, but weighty, "We're here." The kids are thrilled. I enrolled them in school. It's really starting. I replied, "You've done the impossible." And I did it for them, and for myself. You're strong. Now our conversations have become regular. No despair, no complaints. We talked about new recipes, how Lily dislikes broccoli, and the first snowflake on the porch of their new apartment. These conversations weren't like they were from the past. They looked like they were from the future. One day, she sent another photo, a drawing made by Lily. A small house with windows, a green courtyard, 2 children playing ball, a woman with curly hair standing by the window. There is an inscription at the bottom, "This is our home now." Mom says Aunt Jenna is our sunshine. I burst into tears. Quietly, without sobbing. They were not tears of pain, but of liberation. I realized that I was no longer part of the old circle where love was measured by money. I am the beginning of a new story. Where kindness is a choice, not an obligation. Where respect is reciprocity, not manipulation. And may Mike continue to live in his accusations. I chose a different path. And this path does not lead back. But go ahead. Winter has imperceptibly given way to spring. Although spring never comes with fanfare in Riverfield, it creeps on tiptoe, carefully melting the snow on the roof, leaving the first drops on the windowsill, giving the morning winds the scent of melted earth and wet bark. And yet I felt it coming, not according to the calendar or the weather. Spring has begun inside of me. She paved a path through the ice that I had wrapped around my heart for so long. Since I closed the door in front of Mike, everything has started to change. But not violently, not noisily, like drop by drop in a bowl that was filling slowly, patiently. I started living. Not to survive, not to pretend, not to please. Namely, to live. On Fridays, I volunteered at the city library. There, among the bookshelves, surrounded by children's voices, I felt needed, but in a different way than before, when my need was measured by the amounts in my bank account. Here I sat with the children, helped them put words into sentences, and told them how, as a child, I hid books under my pillow and read at night with a flashlight. Their laughter was genuine, and their gratitude was instant. They didn't ask for much. Just attention. And I was happy to give it away. I bought a ukulele, not because I dreamed of becoming a musician, but because I wanted to do something just for myself again. At first, the awkward chords sounded like the meowing of a frightened cat, but with each passing week, the fingers became more confident and the sounds clearer. This little wooden box with 4 strings turned out to be my companion in silence. I'd play in the evenings, humming old tunes to myself, and in those moments I'd find the Jenna I'd almost forgotten. Yoga has become another part of the new way of life. Not for the sake of fashion. Not for the sake of the body. For the sake of breathing. For the sake of a pause in which there was no need to save anyone. I would lie down on the mat, close my eyes, and just be there. Here and now. I talked to Haley once a week. Our conversations were short, warm, like a ray of light through the blinds. She talked about Lily, who was enthusiastically studying in the school library, and how Owen won the competition for the best project about the solar system. We exchanged stories, laughed, and sometimes just kept quiet. But there was no tension in that silence anymore. It became the very calmness we had been missing. One day, a letter arrived. Not electronic. Paper. In an envelope decorated with stickers. There was a drawing inside. Drawn by a child's hand, a small red house, the sun above it, and a woman with her hair down on the porch. The caption, "Aunt Jenna is our sunshine." I held it in my hands for a long time. She looked like she was afraid the colors would fade. It wasn't just a confession. It was healing. It's proof that I've regained not only my voice, but also the right to be loved. Not for the help, not for the gifts, not for being convenient. Just for who I am. Mike, as I learned later, continued to slide into the abyss of unemployment and petty scams. My parents called less often, and when my mom left a message faintly but still clearly accusing me of his loneliness, I simply deleted it. I wasn't angry. I didn't expect them to understand anymore. I knew that silence does not mean weakness. Silence is a choice. This is the border. It's freedom from those who have never seen me as anything but a function. Now in the mornings I go out on the porch with a cup of tea. The yard is still covered in silver frost, but the air already smells of spring. I watch the sun playing on the snow, the branches of the trees reaching out to the light, the birds playing in the bushes, and I think, I am no longer a shadow, not a reflection of other people's expectations. I am the light itself. Not dazzling, but honest. Constant. Real. I'm not lost. I got out. I became myself. And never again will I allow anyone, neither strangers nor relatives, to use my kindness as an instrument of power. It is not a duty. She's a gift. And I choose who to give it to. And this choice is my strength.